President Donald Trump's threat to designate the Antifa movement as a terrorist organization has sparked a debate over whether such a designation is even possible under U.S. law. Experts say Antifa, short for anti-fascist or anti-fascism, is a loosely organized ideological movement without a clear leadership structure or hierarchy.
Wrong.
That is absolutely
wrong.
Proved over and over again.
Wrong.
Well, this is big breaking news because just 24 hours after President Trump announced he would be designating Antifa as a major terrorist organization, we just got the news that 2 Antifa agitators were arrested in the city of Boston, Massachusetts, after they showed up to a Charlie Kirk Vigil and memorial to try to disrupt and ruin the event. And it's basically the ultimate case of F around and find out, right? Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. But here's why I say it's significant. Is because this may actually be the first case I've ever seen where these Antifa militants and agitators actually get held accountable. Not only have they been arrested, they're actually being charged with crimes. Ladies and gentlemen, it is an early Christmas miracle. Because I'm sure many of you who are familiar with this subject have the same deja vu from Trump 1 that I do, which is these people for years have essentially been allowed to run around, commit havoc on these streets, riot, loot, assault people, do whatever they want. And they have essentially been this left-wing terror paramilitary organization that has operated with impunity above the law, especially in places like Portland, Oregon, Berkeley, California, Seattle, Washington. I don't know what's different this time, whether it has to do with the terrorist designation that the administration is looking at, or maybe the city of Boston is very scared of seeing a federal takeover, or heck, maybe just things have changed in America. I don't know. But nonetheless, I want to bring you this story here today, as well as give you some updates on that whole debate over the terrorist designation, because predictably, despite what you just saw happen to Charlie Kirk, despite the fact that, this was a long time coming, frankly, you are still seeing a major push by the Democrats to say, no, that's not accurate. Not only that, maybe it's one thing to argue, right, that it wouldn't be appropriate to say Antifa is directly a terrorist organization, but they take that one step further, right? They say Antifa is not an organization at all. It doesn't exist. Being Antifa just means you're against fascism. So the World War II soldiers were Antifa, which is such a disgraceful and disgusting comparison to make. Imagine showing, guys, your great-grandfathers the modern black bloc Antifa and saying, hey, you guys are just one and the same. They would roll over in their graves. Who knows, honestly, if they knew back then, I'm not even going to go there, but still, okay? It's such nonsense. I want to respond to that as well. So that said, guys, we will get into this full story. First, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. And I know someone's probably going to ask, so let me just address what's up with the glasses. Well, it turns out I got into a fight with a IKEA table today. True story. I basically had furniture delivered. I'm setting up this place. And the problem is it's super tall, too tall for the door. And it's this very heavy cardboard flat box. So, I do the very interesting method of trying to lean it on my face and then pull it in the door. And I didn't think anything of it, but then I looked in the mirror. Apparently it bruised my face. So I had this freaking red dot here, and it was I didn't even notice it in the last video. And then I'm in the editing. I'm like, what's on my face? So, we're gonna put on this disguise, okay? It's when you put the Mr. Potato mustache on or something, okay? So, temporary fix. But anyways, that said, here's the story. So, Antifa agitators disrupt Boston Charlie Kirk Vigil with 2 arrested, charged with disorderly conduct and suspicion of assault after confrontation with memorial attendees. Now, those are not the most serious charges, but again, I say it is progress that any charges are being made at all. So here's the story. 2 Antifa agitators were arrested Thursday night during a vigil to remember the slain conservative activist Charlie Kirk. People gathered in the Boston Common. Worth noting, by the way, kind of one of the major birthplaces of the American Revolution. And, this is essentially what happened. Lit candles to honor Kirk, who was shot and killed last week on a Utah college campus in what I would likewise call the shot heard around the world, right? But nonetheless, a group of protesters was separated from the vigil by barriers. Police officers were present, but it would appear here, right, that these people tried to storm in. By the way, here are the kind of videos of what you saw on the ground. This is by Andy No. right? So as, people are trying to pray, mourn this guy's death, here you have Antifa with drums and megaphones screaming, F you Nazi, F you fascist. Now, I've made this point before, but I would just like to say again, just so we understand what we're dealing with here, that it does take a truly special level of derangement to show up essentially to what is a funeral and act like this. I've said it before, but I'll say it again, right? I don't care how much I didn't like someone when they're alive. I'm not saying everyone in the world I would ever go to their funeral. But there's a difference between that and then showing up and spitting on their grave. Or imagine going to someone's funeral you didn't like and just screaming this, right? F you, you were a bad person, I hate you. It's like, again, I don't care how much I don't like them. That's never something that would cross my mind. Because it's a, like, almost heinously evil, heinously disgraceful thing to do, which is essentially to desecrate the dead. People with any degree of morals in historical societies have like almost universally seen that as like a disgraceful thing. But here we are dealing with people who are so exceptionally evil, so exceptionally deranged that even those lines they're willing to cross, right? They're actually likely going to show up to Charlie Kirk's funeral service on Sunday and, act the same exact way. And it's just utter insanity, If George Soros passed away, if Joe Biden passed away, any of these people, would I go to their funeral? No. But would I show up to their funeral and try to agitate it, or show up to even public memorials and try to agitate it? No, because there's a certain level of just like, that's deranged. They passed away. Let bygones be bygones. It is what it is. Pray for their soul. But again, this is the exceptional psychotic behavior we're up against. So just keep that in mind. Anyways, that said, apparently Joseph Antoine Castro Del Rio, 38 years old, was arrested on disorderly conduct charges. An underage male, a minor, who actually was charged, by the way, was also arrested on suspicion of assault and battery. Now, again, that's very interesting because, historically, if you look at a city like DC, another blue city, right? This person is apparently a youth, so you can't try them. But, good to see. This person had a knife at the time of his arrest and will also be charged with possession of a dangerous weapon, according to police. What was he carrying that knife for? Another open question. This is a week where we've seen someone try. So these two jihadi terrorists earlier this week tried to bomb the Fox News van, a local Fox station, but still a Fox van. Just today, we might do our own video on it, but someone tried to shoot up the ABC affiliate in Sacramento just 2 days after the Jimmy Kimmel scandal. RFK Jr.'s home was just evacuated due to a bomb threat. And you look at stories like that, you look at obviously Tyler Robinson shooting Charlie Kirk, and it's like, who knows what he was going to do? He apparently, it would appear he got caught because he was trying to charge through the barricade with a knife. Dangerous world out there, okay? And particularly dangerous because either deranged, psychotic, radical leftists are running around, or deranged, psychotic, radical leftist policies are allowing general criminals to run around. Very telling. Anyways, Del Rio was using a microphone and amplification device in violation of a city ordinance to shout down those at the vigil, and was asked to leave multiple times, according to a police report provided to Fox News Digital. And then, I think you can see them there. Someone's getting arrested, getting in people's faces and all this garbage. And, we have here another interesting story, because I've seen it happen all week long. Whether it's people getting fired from their jobs for obvious reasons because they said obviously heinous things about a guy who died. Or Jimmy Kimmel getting taken off the air because he violated FCC rules pretty blatantly. Or this situation right here. You have another case of a radical leftist being shocked that the rules actually apply to them, right? I'm sure this person is now going to be playing the victim, that the police tried to censor me. All they did was ask me multiple times to leave because I'm not allowed to use the megaphone. I refused and they just arrested me, and now they're charging me with it, right? Although, in total fairness to this Antifa idiot, maybe he has a point. Because for a very long time in this country, these types of agitators were not held accountable. They're just allowed. The police just stand by. The police have literally allowed them to go as they smash windows and assault people, and, nothing ever happens, right? So who knows? That's what we're dealing with. But anyways, apparently this guy was plugging the device and began shouting at the attendees of the vigil. Police said when confronted by officers, as you heard in that video, he began calling them names such as Nazis, fascists, and white supremacists, the police report said. Okay, so typical, right? Hey, the county law says you cannot use a amplification device at night like this outdoors. You Nazi, you fascist, guys, what? You know? And that's how he's going to go with this, right? Like, these people, they stage everything. It is such a common trend in left-wing protesting. You know, it's like the videos where ICE like pushes someone and they're like, I got pushed by ICE. Oh, why did you get pushed by ICE? Oh, I was just getting in their face or trespassing or they told me to leave or this or that, but I got pushed. Same situation here, right? Hey, can you like shut up and stop waking the neighbors up? That's Nazism. You know, Nazism is when, you know, you have a relatively quiet neighborhood, apparently. He continued to ignore commands and was placed under arrest, police said. Oh, well, don't we all feel so bad for the guy, right? The underage suspect was allegedly seen shouting obscenities at the vigil crowd and was escorted out of the area. And while leaving, he punched someone wearing a Make America Great Again hat on the arm. So keep in mind, this guy's carrying a knife. He assaults someone in a MAGA hat. Who knows if police don't escort him off the premises, what's going to happen there, right? So, you know, when you look at this very regular type of behavior, and like literally everyone I've ever seen in Antifa Black Bloc is deranged and violent like this, really begs the question as to, you know, if it's such a rampant problem in this country, left-wing political violence, which it is, you know, all these ADL studies talking about how that's not a real problem or right-wingers commit more violence. That's all bogus, right? It's because they don't actually count left-wing violence, such as Antifa riots, and they're counting things on the right-wing side like prison violence, which is just total nonsense. Maybe we'll address that in full at some point. But nonetheless, the good news here is that this week, in the wake of what you just saw, Donald Trump and his administration have been having serious talks about essentially going after the organized far left and their violent, radical domestic terror network. And that's why he announced just like 2 days ago here that I am pleased to inform our many USA patriots that I'm designating Antifa a sick, dangerous, radical left disaster as a major terrorist organization. I will also strongly be recommending that those funding Antifa be thoroughly investigated in accordances with the highest legal standards and practices. Thank you for your attention to this matter. And by the way, as he alluded to at the end of that Truth Social, the conversation you're currently hearing out of the Trump administration is not exclusively just about the domestic terror label. You've also heard this speculation of RICO charges against George Soros and the organized far left, which is essentially say, you know, do the RICO against the Open Society Foundation and the network of money that flows between all of these radical groups, and they all come from higher sources. Very many, oftentimes, these radical agitators are paid or professional activists. Many such cases was well documented, right? So, you know, I have to say, this is something Charlie Kirk was publicly passionate about throughout a lot of his life. He dealt with these people on a regular basis. By the way, the final one he ever dealt with was another radicalized, someone at least adjacent to Antifa, right? So, you know, this is a big development, which is, of course, why it's completely expected that the Democrats are throwing a hissy fit about it, right? And keep this in mind, as I'm going to keep saying, the Democrats keep running around pretending as if they're not associated with the radical left and they condemn violence. Yet you ever notice that ever since Trump has talked about doing things like breaking up and dissolving the organized far left or bringing RICO charges against George Soros, the Democrat Party, the supposedly neoliberal political institution that has nothing to do with these black bloc, radical communist people, is so offended or seemingly so nervous over that claim. Take a listen here to the reaction over at MSNBC.
Senator, let's talk about that call to action, because today there was a bicameral effort, meaning members of the House, members of the U.S. Senate, presenting a plan forward, additional legal protections for individuals who are targeted by this administration. I want you to talk us through how that might work, and then also talk to us about whether or not you can take some of those principles and apply them to left-leaning groups that, as you said, are being targeted.
Yep. So what we did today, a bicameral group of senators, we said freedom of speech is sacrosanct. It is our most precious right. And what we need to do is to put into law language that will stop the federal government from taking away those free speech rights. And it would give additional tools to individuals that and organizations that are being unfairly targeted or attacked by agents of the federal government, including the President of the United States. That's exactly what we see right now.
Right. So as I've been saying time and time again, here's another example of the Democrats claiming to have nothing to do with these people. But when Trump goes after these people for committing or inciting domestic terrorism, the Democrats are like, no, please don't do that, right? It's very guilty behavior. It's like, when your dog chewed up all your shoes, but is pretending like it wasn't them or something like that, right? And the truth of the matter is, of course, Democrats and Antifa have a very close relationship because Democrats fully understand that even if these Antifa communist people aren't even actively voting in the elections, what are they? A paramilitary force. What do? They intimidate, for instance, conservatives from organizing or being vocal about their beliefs. I mean, that's a very real social effect as a result of these radicals. As you saw, by the way, from Charlie Kirk, there's an understanding all right-wingers have in America, which is, hey, if we remotely want to speak our minds, some insane leftist might kill us. You don't think that Democrats want it that way? They can say whatever they want. They absolutely do. There's a reason why they protect these people time and time again, and you're seeing that once more. Of course, the second excuse besides the due process or something that I've heard for Antifa this week is that Antifa can't be a terrorist organization because Antifa doesn't exist, right? Bringing back the Joe Biden talking point, Antifa's an idea. Here you see, for instance, from Ed Krasenstein, if Antifa is a terrorist organization, then so too is MAGA. Antifa is anyone who is anti-fascist. MAGA is anyone who supports Donald Trump. Going on here to further state, Antifa is not an organization. MAGA is not an organization. Most of Antifa is peaceful, and Antifa is an idea. Opposition to fascism, blah, 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 blah. Ideas and loose movements aren't the same as structured terror groups, according to Ed Krasenstein. Well, first of all, the majority of Antifa who march in the streets do engage in violence, so let's not pretend. But of course, this is idiocy number one that you're going to hear very often. Oh, because they call themselves anti-fascist, that means they're anti-fascist. Which I say in response, okay, North Korea calls themselves the Democratic People's Republic. Does that mean they're a democratic republic? MAGA, by the way. I mean, this one is actually true, but I would say to liberals, okay, so then if you're against MAGA, you're against making America great. Right? Because if you just put words or names on something, that means it's obviously true, right? So that's all it is. Antifa's just the idea of being anti-fascist. Well, of course, guys, needless to say, that is not true, okay? There is being anti-fascist, being against fascism, and there is specifically the group that Antifa is short for, which is not just anti-fascist, it is anti-fascist action. That is what all of their flags say. And the group Anti-Fascist Action, if you're wondering, by the way, where this logo comes from, where the origins here are from, originates, ladies and gentlemen, from a historic communist organization in Weimar, Germany. Okay? So they say Antifa is not an organization. It's not about communism. It's just about being anti-fascism. Again, you can give things lots of names. Okay? It doesn't mean, oh, it's only anti-fascism, So let's just explain, okay? What is the origin of Antifa? Well, I'm going to butcher the German here, but Antifaschistische Aktion, okay, whatever you say there, was a communist militant organization. First of all, they're communist, because you guys keep telling me, the World War II soldiers who stormed Normandy Beach would have been Antifa. No. It is a communist organization. That's how it's formed. The people who are marching right now with Black Bloc in the streets, big surprise, not exactly a secret, also are communists trying to mimic this communist militant organization. With this very same logo, by the way. Does that flag look familiar to you? Huh? These stupid freaking liberals, are they waving the American flag, by the way? Are they waving the British flag? No, they're waving this. Okay, this. And yes, there is an origin. Part of the reason why they celebrate it is because, well, it was also like anti-fascist and anti-Nazi at the time. But guess what it was? Communist. It was a pro-Bolshevik organization. That's why these people do this. I don't know why we even try to argue here in good faith, but guys, guess what? It was founded and controlled by the Communist Party of Germany. Do you know what it essentially was? It was the Nazi Party's equivalent to the SA, later the SS, right? The paramilitary kind of Gestapo or enforcing class of people, you know? So what you see obviously on the streets today with the same logo, the same name, just in English, is an offshoot of people trying to mimic that exact thing. While it is true that Antifa is decentralized, that does not mean you cannot designate it a terrorist organization. There is obviously a defined kind of group of people who follow it and dress up in these things. By the way, they are centralized or organized on the local level, okay? Don't pretend as if like, oh, it's just random people spontaneously showing up. No, they organize these things. And so even if it takes, legally speaking, the Trump administration to say, okay, we can't designate one Antifa as the terrorist organization. That's fine. You can designate several Antifas, right? You can designate, this Portland militia and this Seattle Antifa group, etc. Like, it's really not all that complicated. But I again go back to this. The argument that just because something is decentralized, that means it can't be an organization is just ridiculous. Like ISIS, for instance, okay? There's the main ISIS that got destroyed. There is now ISIS-K operating in kind of like the rural parts of Afghanistan and stuff. That's an offshoot of the original ISIS. There's other ISISes around the world in, Africa, even the terror cells across the West and Russia even, right? So are we just going to say like ISIS is now, it's an idea. It's not an organization because there's multiple factions, there's different groups. It's kind of decentralized nowadays. No, obviously there still is a terrorist organization known as ISIS, or multiple terrorist organizations operating for the same cause known as ISIS, right? So just want to address that because I'm just so tired of this garbage, right? Antifa is not an organization. Antifa means anti-fascism. No, it's not, okay? The specific group in reference here is historically a communist organization, okay? That's where it comes from. That's what they're doing right now. Yeah. Newsflash, it's not World War II veterans putting on the black bloc, okay? It's crazy, insane, violent communist revolutionaries. But that said, guys, let me know your thoughts on this in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and until next time, God bless and peace.